Yes, guys, how you doing? Welcome back to Football Inc. and Sean Butler TV. I hope you guys are all happy and healthy. This is your, hopefully it's going to become daily Premier League transfer updates. I'm here, of course, with the main man himself, Johnny 83232 from Twitter fame. How you doing, Johnny? Good to see you, mate.
Yeah, I mean, my life feels empty now without, upcoming games at the weekend. What we got to look forward to is the Conference League final on Wednesday, where I'll be cheering on Real Betis. No offense, Chelsea fans. And of course, really looking forward to the final at the weekend between Inter Milan and PSG. But to fill the gap, we'll be bringing these transfer news and all the football stories on Football Inc., our new channel. So if you are watching or you just tuned in, hit that subscribe button. Remember, subscribe doesn't mean you're paying anything. It just gives you a notification when we're on and live, and it helps the channel grow. So if you could do that, whether you're on Sean Butler TV or you're on Football Inc., hit that button today, and we appreciate it. Sorry, right.
Yeah, guys, well, smash right. Just quickly, Johnny, I don't know if you've got your mic. Have you got like a separate mic, or are you using your computer mic? If you are, can you double check your settings are picking up that mic, because it's a little bit echoey? But if it's not a problem either.
Try that now. Is that better?
Yeah, nailed it.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Sorry, mate.
All right, first story out of the traps today, mate. We've got to speak about the merry-go-round that is the potential striker market. It's really quite an interesting striker market this summer. Usually, we're always talking about high demand, short supply. This time around, as far as we can tell, there's probably 5 teams looking for a new, like, bonkers level, real improvement in the striker market. Maybe a few more, depending on what they can get done and if they lose or if they can get some people out of the way first. But there's also probably 4 or 5 really interesting names that are all up for sale at different levels of value, different levels of skill set. Obviously, we've got the GYOKERES name. We've got Benjamin Sesko out Germany, that's also looking likely to move over to the UK. Ekitike as well is another, Ekitike, however you say his last name, is another interesting name that, has filled the gap of Omar Mamouche. Will his current team be looking to sell another monster player in 6 months? We'll find out. And of course, you've got Liam Delap, who has been looking increasingly likely that he wants to move back to the Northwest, with Manchester United the most preferred option at the moment. Although he's also said he wants Champions League, and United can't offer that. We know why. We know why. What happened last week. And then, of course, the other 5th name on that list is Jonathan David, who today it looks like he has turned down West Ham United.
Can't believe that, Sean. He's turned down West Ham. Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But with that, you've also got Napoli sniffing around. Napoli not sure who their manager's going to be. Conte might be going back to Juventus. It's all up in the air. So much going on.
Sure. Did you see those scenes in Napoli? They were unbelievable. I don't know if you saw them.
Yeah, I did.
The whole city, like when they won it, looked like every person in Naples had set off a rocket or a flare.
Yeah, more flares than the 70s, right? Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. And, it seems like Spurs started it off with their celebration and their parade. And everyone since has tried to go one up on it. Shocking what happened yesterday at Liverpool's parade. But before that, there was untold amounts of people in the centre of Liverpool. Palace obviously couldn't match that, but it was a nice parade. And then, of course, you had that incredible parade out in Napoli. But it's exciting, Sean, with the striker merry-go-round. And the United one, I mean, they've been trying to harvest that Matheus Cunha deal for months now.
Looks like it's off at the moment. That's the other story. I forgot to mention that. We can merge that into the same story. Apparently, Wolves are now not happy with the structure of the payments. Thought that was done. I thought it had the here we go, but apparently not, Johnny.
Well, it's 63 million, which I, to be honest with you, when I look at our club, for example, Spurs, who paid 65 million for Dom Solanke, I think 63 million is an absolute steal for Matheus Cunha. Yes, he doesn't do a lot of tracking back, so he's a luxury player, but he can create something out of nothing. He can play up front, he can play as a 10, he can play out wide. He offers you so many options. The thing is, with Man United, the question is, Ratcliffe came in and said if we didn't make these huge cutbacks, we wouldn't be able to pay our bills. They've got now no Champions League football. They got very little money for, their position where they finished. Obviously, a little bit more than Spurs, but not much. And basically, they're going to be in trouble. I can't see how they're going to afford all these players. I'll be honest with you. I really can't. I think they need to sell. Obviously, they'll be looking to sell Rashford, who's another striker, probably being on the mix.
Who's going to buy him?
Well, someone might go. It depends on the payment structure. 40 million. Maybe
how much time has he got left on his deal, mate? He's getting paid 300 grand a week or whatever it is. Who's going to take that on?
Well, it's up to him now whether or not he wants to be a footballer or he wants to look like a rapper, right, and dress in Louis Vuitton pajamas, or he wants to have a proper career. You've also got Jadon Sancho. They need to get rid of. So look, there's players. They'll probably look to do a swap, maybe Sancho for Gittins or someone like that at Dortmund. But the striker situation, Delap, is he really a Man United player? But when you look at it, Delap's he's got a buyout clause of only £30 million. So maybe for a payment and the amount of money Man United might have available, Liam Delap might be a more sensible option.
Look, Delap is... what does £30 million get you these days, Johnny?
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a bargain, right?
Bargain. But I'd take him at Tottenham. I would absolutely take him at Tottenham. I think he's not my number one, but actually I wouldn't hate that at all. And it gives you money to do other things, right?
Yeah, 100%. 30 million. I think most clubs will be looking to do clever business, not all just big business. Aston Villa, having now sent Rashford back, probably, and having sold Duran to balance their books to Saudi last year, they'll also need a striker. But they're going to have to offload a lot of players to meet FFP.
Or as regards Daniel is saying here, this is the new shiny toy that all these owners can do, isn't it? Value it where you want, as we saw the Chelsea stake recently that bought the 8% stake in Chelsea, which basically valued Chelsea's women's team at 245 million quid. I think it was the husband of Serena Williams who bought that 8% stake for 20 million quid. And, it turned out to be 245 million quid for Chelsea valuation, which immediately, and by the way, just inflates the valuation relative to what Chelsea sold their own stake. Like Chelsea sold the women's team to Blueco last summer to get around FFP. That's a 20 times multiple on the revenue of Chelsea's women's team. That sets a precedent, mate. And with this whole third-party transactions things up in the air because of Man City, all these clubs can do that now. And so if they don't have money, but they do have deep pockets and willingness to spend, I just don't know if Man City do. Like, so Jim Ratcliffe's been crying poor. Does he want to put in more money? Do the Glazers want to put in more money? They've taken more money out than they've taken everything out. They haven't put anything back in, have they? So do they have owners that want to stick their money in to the club? That's the big question.
Well, for Man United at the moment, one of the big problems is they've just been given a 2-star food hygiene rating because they found some mouse droppings at the stadium. So does that mean the long-awaited Man United celebration barbecue is now off? Not sure. But it could be cancelled. Look, the thing is...
Put it back for a year.
There are a lot of clubs. Probably the number one club that needs a striker, first and foremost, I would say, is Arsenal. The whole season, probably half of last season as well, all you hear is the pundits, Arsenal need a striker. Arsenal failed because of the striker. So they're probably looking at the striker. Now, Bertie, is his name Bertie?
Yeah, Bertie and Arteta, apparently, yeah. They're having an argument.
Bertie has a relationship with GYOKERES, and that's probably why he wants him in. 63 goals in 58 games. That's the one Brighton let get away, I can tell you.
£1 million they sold. I think it was £1 million. They bought him for 100 grand. They sold him for $1 million. They probably thought that's decent business.
Listen, let me tell you something, right? I wanted him before Solanke, and I really, really like him. I really rate him, and he's like the Harry Kane story, where Harry Kane did it, and they said, yeah, but he's a one-season wonder. And he kept doing it season after season. And that's what we're seeing with GYOKERES. He just keeps doing it and doing it and doing it. But as we mentioned offline earlier, he might want, Bertie might want to bring GYOKERES there. But Arteta has other ideas because he wants Sesko, right?
That's what I've read. Yeah, I don't know. It's been put around by some quite decent sort of insiders or whatever. So that he's apparently the argument is that Sesko's a better fit for his style of play. But I've been watching a lot of the kind of what do you call them, the top gooners or whatever on YouTube, and a lot of them are saying that they don't really want Sesko because they see him as another one with potential, and that GYOKERES is the kind of he's the real deal, and Sesko might be the real deal, right? And so. And look, there's not a lot of difference in the valuations for the players. For what it's worth, mate, like GYOKERES 100% is an incredible player. There's make no bones about it. But Benjamin Sesko is also a fucking amazing player. Let's like both of. I'd bite your hand off for either of those players at Tottenham.
I just think that with GYOKERES, he just keeps doing it. Those numbers are sensational. 63 and 58. I can't remember what his numbers were last year, but they would have been equally impressive. Look, there's a lot of quality out there. You cannot argue that Sesko's a quality player. And, I think a lot of clubs would have been over the moon to get Sesko. It looks to me that at long last, there's some quality strikers out there that are in big demand. Personally, I'm not over the moon with ours, but I think there's better out there.
Well, but that's it's an interesting segue though, right? Like obviously when you've got the domino effect that always happens, if one moves, like for example, if GYOKERES moves, one of the other stories here is that Ronaldo, he's leaving or apparently leaving Saudi Arabia, and his stories, the argument there is he might go to Brazil to participate in the Club World Cup, which is a little bit of a kind of a nice little way for him to get back stuck into a big tournament, but also he might be going back to Sporting. So like there's that kind of that knock-on effect there that could easily happen. Then, of course, down to where me and you at the kind of lower end of the table here, we're thinking about, well, what's left for teams like us? And, does Richarlison then become a viable option for someone like Sporting? Does Richarlison become an option, or Solanke, whatever, to be moved on to fill the gap of someone else whose gap has been filled because of the transfer? That knock-on effect if it starts early, you could see a lot of strikers moving hands over the next couple of months.
Well, a lot of strikers will have their eyes on the main prize this summer, unless they're nailed on, and that's the World Cup place. And Richarlison will be looking to get minutes because he'll want to get into Ancelotti's team for the World Cup in the summer. Solanke, I'm not so sure how nailed on he would be to be in the England. Well, he's definitely not, right? When you look at...
He's got a chance, but he's not nailed on.
I think Watkins is ahead of him. You've got Kane, you've got Watkins. Who knows how Delap will improve. So, and the same will go for these others. Sesko's nailed on to start for his country. GYOKERES nailed on to start for Sweden if they make it. Sweden have got a lovely little team there, haven't they? When you look at that,
I'm just thinking, is Slovenia in the World Cup? I don't know. Slovenia.
Well, they're not out of it yet. Let's put it like that.
They're not. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so I'm not even.
Well, they've only had. I think they've only had 2 games, haven't they, so far in the World Cup qualifiers?
Oh, they haven't actually played any.
They haven't played any. Yeah. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
So that's going to come. The other one on the list, which is quite interesting that you mentioned, is obviously Jonathan David, another one who can't stop scoring. Left foot, right foot. He's, a lot of people say, oh, he's Canadian. He hasn't really done it. He's only done it in the French league. Go and look at his stats in the Champions League. What was his stats? They were very good, weren't they?
Oh, incredible. Finish your point. I'll bring up his stats on the screen now.
I just think that someone like Jonathan David, who's been linked with, who I would definitely take, and I think a lot of clubs would, apparently he's turned down West Ham United already. Lots of links linking him to Napoli, because obviously they'll be in the Champions League. And, on a free transfer, I heard that the agent's fee is something like 15 million.
Allegedly 10 million for the agent fee, 15 million signing on fee.
Wages. Sorry, yeah, signing on fee, 10 million agents fee, 15 million signing on fee plus the wages.
Never understand why an agent thinks he's entitled to such a large slice when
that's the game we're in. That's the game. That is the game. But
here's his stats overall. Right, look at this. It's just insane. Overall, 187 games played, 99 goals this is a centre forward.
Yeah.
26 assists. As a second striker, 47, 15, and 3.
Yeah.
It's essentially it's more than one every 2 games as a G or an A, right? A goal contribution. In the Champions League.
Yeah.
Sorry, go on, carry on, mate. Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, look at his positions. You know, like he plays all over, and he just. You have to say, look at the Champions League stats. You know, when people say he's in the French league, and that's nothing. Look at him.
No, the guy's an absolute beast. The reason why I was a little bit unsure of him pre the 2022 World Cup was I just didn't feel like I feel like his stats were good, but whenever I saw him, I just thought he lacked areas of his game. But in the last 12 months, you know, for sure, he has become fully well-rounded, and there's very few obvious vulnerabilities in his game. So it's about time that he sort of stepped out of the kind of, you know, no disrespect to the French league, but it's about time he tested himself week in, week out in the Premier League or a bigger league competition. And okay, it looks like he's got his choice of suitors. Napoli are apparently up there, so are Tottenham. But you know, Napoli have got this, you know, just like Tottenham, unknowns about their manager, and you don't want to sign for a club unless you know who you're playing for, right? So like, you know, you have not just Tottenham, but all the clubs that are thinking about, do we not change our manager? Even Inter Milan don't know who their manager is going to be. As I said at the start of the show, I think it was that Inzaghi, he might be moving to Saudi Arabia, and that's a really interesting update because, you know, I think we'd all like to see possibly, you know, whether, again, not to make this about Tottenham, but like if we're looking at, you know, managerial names, Inzaghi is one of the best around, and for him to be sort of going off for the money over to Saudi, that's a little bit of a disappointment if that's the case, Johnny, no?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are talking about Xavi, but when I think about it, I think Hans Flick has shown with the same team, he's done a much better job than Xavi. You know, what he's done with Rafinha, moving him into the middle and away from the wide position, he's playing a lot better. I just think that the clubs are already moving. Spurs, because we don't know what's going to happen with the manager, as we spoke yesterday, while all the clubs are at the disco picking up all the birds. Spurs are still waiting for the Uber. We can't order the Uber because we don't have the driver yet. They're all chatting them up, but there'll be other clubs, you know, Arsenal, they know where they're going. Any club that doesn't know what's happening with the manager or contemplating getting rid of the manager, they can't really move. But Man United look to be making first mover advantage. I think we're going to see plenty of deals in the early part, this new special window, the 2-week window for the World Club Championship. We've seen Liverpool making some serious moves with Florian Wirtz.
Can you explain to me what the point is of this dual part window? Is it just so that the clubs in the Club World Championship can basically play these new players now? Is that the benefit?
Correct. But also, I think it's an opportunity for other clubs to move. And if you don't know what your manager is doing, then you can't do anything in this window. And I think with some of the quality that's out there, first mover advantage is very, very important. We've seen Man City try to move on Wirtz. For whatever reason, they pulled out, maybe FFP, PSR, with the amount of money that's involved. But Liverpool don't have any problem with it. They've obviously as well got Frimpong as well. Yeah. And they've got others coming in because they know that they're going to need, new players. So I don't know. It's who's going to move first. And like you said before, it could be a load of dominoes. I think Rashford could easily go abroad. Look, 40 million, but it could be over 4 years or 5 years, in which case 10 million a year is affordable. It's how you deal with the wages. The
it's a big deal though. It's a big deal, right? Like if you're Marcus Rashford and Man United is saying we don't want you, Aston Villa can't afford you, and we've got a story about Aston Villa as well to come to. Then he might be going, well, where are my options, right? And if the options are in Spain or Italy, they don't pay the same sort of wages, right? There's very few players in Italy or Spain that earn anything like that. Very, very few, like a handful. And none of them, they are all miles better than Marcus Rashford, miles more consistent. So it's a weird one. And I'm just sitting there thinking, Marcus Rashford's he's either got 3 years or 2. I think he's got 3 years left on his deal. I might be wrong about that. But on that basis, do you really want to feel Marcus Rashford? Do you really you go, no, if you don't want me, loan me out. Loan me out again, but I want my 300 grand a week. I'm not going. Why should I take a pay cut?
100%. He owes them absolutely nothing, and that could easily be the scenario, quite easily. And Man United still having to play a large proportion of the wage. But the other one that we haven't mentioned yet, which was mentioned earlier in the, we mentioned it a few weeks back, is Ollie Watkins potentially to Arsenal.
Yeah,
that's another one. So there's a,
I think that Arsenal have got their eyes on one of the GYOKERES and Sesko. Chelsea clearly, just for what it's worth, Ekitike, there's an £84 million story knocking around that Liverpool or Chelsea are looking at him. I don't think that Liverpool are going to be able to spend £150 million on Florian Wirtz and also go for Ekitike unless they find a new home for Darwin Núñez. And that's another one that's going to be part of the merry-go-round, the stories. That sort of stuff doesn't happen quickly. If these players, bearing in mind, right, we have to also give the credit to the players. We're all sitting there with our, thinking that our owners of whichever club you support are often just sitting on their hands, not being busy. But they probably have had a conversation. But the players might want to just sit back and go, you know what, I've got 2 months. I'm on holiday now. I want to wait and chew it over, see what my options are. So just because there's no activity doesn't mean that there's no activity, if you know what I mean. And I think that just, Ekitike, I'd just be surprised if Frankfurt were going to sell him after just also selling Omar Mamouche, but they do have El Yawahi that they brought in, who was a big scorer last year in France. So it'll be interesting, mate. But there's 5 names there. As you say, Ollie Watkins, I'd be surprised if Aston Villa might have to sell him, but whether that he would go. I think Arsenal are looking for bigger fish than
Arsenal, mate. He'd run to Arsenal.
Yeah, I'm sure he would, but I don't think Arsenal would necessarily want him because Ollie Watkins scores goals, but he also misses a hell of a lot of chances.
Do they want one striker, though? Do Arsenal only need one striker? I don't think they do. I think they need 2 because then they're exposed to the same situation. Yes, they can play as a false 9 and play Havertz in that position. But for me, if you go for a GYOKERES and another, when you're in the Champions League and you want to make a run for the Premier League title, I think you need 2 strikers. So I can see a situation where, they made one big one and Watkins. Look, we know that Aston Villa, having spent 96% of their income on the wages, they're going to have to sell players now they haven't made Champions League. We saw it last year with Duran going for ridiculous sum of money for the player. I don't think Etete, Eintracht Frankfurt, is anywhere near worth 85. I really like him, but he hasn't reached the height since Mamouche. That understanding they had together, where they were ripping it up in the Bundesliga. They finished 3rd or 4th. I can't remember now.
3rd, I think. Would you take it? Would you I've said for ages. I think that Tottenham now that we've won, I expect the club record signing and or a club's highest earner. Would you be okay if Tottenham went after and paid something like 80 million quid for Ekitike?
I don't think it's worth it. If they spent 80 million on GYOKERES, I'd be dancing down the high street. I think Ekitike is probably worth about 45-50 mil. And I think that's
with options, with buy-ons or whatever.
I think he's a good player.
22 years old though, he's got a long time on his
mobile. We need someone mobile. I mean, Arsenal, they need someone mobile as well, which GYOKERES fits into that. Liam Delap is more of an old-fashioned centre forward, Now, will that really...
No slouch, though, mate. He's certainly no slouch, that guy. He's a
He's flat, but he reminds me of an old-fashioned centre forward, and I wonder whether that really fits into Ruben Amorim's style of football. Horses for courses. And then you look at someone like Jonathan David, left foot, right foot. Now that's a conundrum for the defender. When someone's running at you, normally an attacker has a weaker foot. You try to push him onto it. You can't really do that with Jonathan David. Is he good enough to play in the Premier League? That is the question. But when you score 10 goals in 18 games in the Champions League, I think that answers the question. If you're scoring goals, that number in the Champions League, you're good enough to play in the Premier League, is my opinion.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I look at the Premier League as being the Champions League is the great leveler, but a lot of the time European football is it follows more of a kind. It doesn't necessarily follow the same template as Premier League games, right? A lot of people are catchy, nervy, patient with the ball, feeling each other out, all that sort of thing, right? And so, I'm not taking nothing away. Like before it's word, look at Serhou Guirassy, right? Serhou Guirassy, I think, scored 12 goals this season alone for in the Champions League. That's another one that I got wrong. But I think that Jonathan David does. I look for play when I wonder whether or not players will translate into the Premier League. It's not about whether they have the pace, as in are they physically active and mobile enough. It's whether they have the speed of thought to do what they are naturally good at, but with half a second less than they have in slower leagues, right? How good are they on the half turn? How good are they in the pocket for whatever position we're talking about? Because I think that in the Premier League, you get half a second less than you do in Serie A and in La Liga and in other leagues as well, Germany as well, right? So where I look for is the player, does he have speed of thought? And does that sort of restriction on the time, does that take away whatever they're good at? And I look at Jonathan David, the version of him I'm seeing now, not the version from 2 years ago, the version of this season, and I think that he does have it. And so for a free transfer, I think it makes a lot of sense. The interesting story out today, mate, I forgot to mention this one, of course. This is a major story. And this is, again, the big question around whether he will translate into the Premier League. And I'm not sure, but I'm happy to wait. I mean, I'm curious, is Dusan Vlahović, and that he might be going to Nottingham Forest for 25 million quid. Now, for me, if you're Nottingham Forest and you're going to sunset Chris Wood and you're looking for someone else that can come in and do something similar but also be an upgrade, I think it's a perfect fit for Nottingham Forest. I think it's absolutely brilliant, and I think if they can get that one done.
Can you believe we're even saying that, Sean?
Well, I think that Nottingham Forest have got a fucking brilliant talent ID for what they need. Nuno knows what he wants for his system.
Listen, I just, when you see that Dusan Vlahović playing at Fiorentina, he was an absolute beast. Talk about Michael Jordan hang time in the air, He was unbelievable in the air. He was an absolute beast, the powerhouse. He goes to Juve and for big money, huge money.
Huge money, yeah.
And he is on massive money for Italy.
Yeah, he's on 250 grand a week, I think. Yeah, he's one of the bigger ones.
The thing is, and he's still only 25, I think he's 25 years of age.
26, yeah, he's not old. Not old, yeah.
Not old. My point is that this is a guy who would have cost untold amounts of money. And now you're picking him up for 25 mil and just the wages, incredible. So there are a lot of people bemoan the lack of quality strikers about, over the last few years. And now suddenly there's a whole dearth of them, of quality. And it'll be interesting to see. Because, look, if you can rekindle them, I was watching a video before of Darwin Núñez's missus since he's been at Liverpool. And
his wife? His wife?
No, Mrs., not his missus. Yeah.
I genuinely thought you were missus.
You see where Sean's mind is at the moment. He just wandered a bit.
This is a football show, Sean. This is a football show, remember?
Elder's show. That's the other show, Sean. We'll talk about that one more, right? No, but his misses are quite incredible. I mean, open goal, hitting the post for an open goal, putting the ball over the bar when it's easier to put the ball in the net. Yeah. This is a guy, when he was in Portugal and he was coming here, I thought he was going to be an absolute sensation. Now, he's still young. Can someone get into his head and make him calm down? Because he's got the pace, he's got the power, he gets in the positions, which is in most of the time half the battle. But obviously,
yeah, he's got great positional awareness. Yeah, for sure. Yes, yeah.
We're going to call time on him at some point. Is someone like Vlahović going to take a gamble on him and turn him around? And suddenly we'll see, you know, that striker that we all thought before. Because listen, confidence breeds confidence. We've seen someone like Timo Werner, who was banging the goals in RB Leipzig, comes to Chelsea, started scoring goals. Now he couldn't hit a barn door. And then we look at someone like Mateta at Crystal Palace. Before Oliver Glasner got there, he couldn't hit a barn door. Now he's playing out of his skin. He looks a completely different animal. And that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you can get inside a head. And so if you're buying a Vlahović for 25 million, who looks to have lost his way in his career, that with the top coach, you can get them back on track, and that 25 mil can look like an absolute bargain.
Yeah, look, I just, as I said, I think that Dusan Vlahović, you know, Nottingham Forest might end up doing with Vlahović being the litmus test on whether he is. I don't think anyone bigger is really going to take the risk on him, right? Because he wants a lot of money, and like to your point, I completely agree. He flattered to deceive at Juventus. I think he got like a GA one in every 3.5 or 4 games. It really didn't set the world alight for massive money. It was a big money move, and he didn't really smash it out of the park. And so then you've got that additional step up to the pace of the Premier League, different system. It's a massive unknown, right? It's a huge unknown whether he's going to be a flop or he's going to make it. But at 25 million, if Forest can find, and listen, if Forest, it's interesting because I don't know what Forest's finances are like, but obviously they missed out on the Champions League and ended up not even getting Europa League, which is that brutal finish for them. But look, they've got an owner or he's not a owner anymore, is he? He's kind of stepped down or whatever. I don't know the whole. That's
right? He came out of the ownership because he thought both clubs, his other club, Olympiacos, and the Forest were both going to be in the same tournament. Yeah. So he stepped down, took himself away from it. That's why you saw him on the pitch going absolutely mental. Yeah. It wasn't because the striker collided with the post. It was because he looked like, you know, he's still passionately invested. He's just not officially on board. Yeah. So look, I mean, obviously there's shenanigans going on there, but he's a guy that clearly, like, you know, I've spoken a dozen times on Sean Butler TV, mate, over the years about you know, multi-club ownership, and you know, even if you find a multi-club owner like a Bill Foley, who's very well received in Bournemouth and one or two of his other clubs, there's other clubs that don't like him, because sometimes you're kind of robbing Peter to pay Paul, or you're prioritizing one over the other. You have to be very, very hard pushed to find a fan of any of the owners of any of the clubs that the Forest owner, the shipping magnate, owns, to find someone who's unhappy. He seems to be someone that is universally adored. So, and look, recently in the last 12 months, Nottingham Forest have got like a 9 out of 10 hit rate. And if they can take Dusan Vlahović in, I think it's the perfect club. I think it's the perfect replacement for Chris Wood. And imagine if Nuno can turn him into a beast like he did with the two centre backs, the Murillo and Milenkovic, right? Like those. I mean, we all thought that Milenkovic. I mean, I don't remember anybody in the Tottenham community who didn't want Milenkovic before he came. Right? Everyone was like, he's a beast, and then he goes to Forest. He was never linked to Tottenham, but he goes to Forest and absolutely smashes it. Obviously, he's a better fit for a certain system than another system. He wouldn't fit Tottenham's system now, but Murillo's an absolute baller. And if Nuno can get the best out of Dusan Vlahović, then, you know, Nottingham Forest are doing bits, mate. And it's a really nice story. Like, it's a nice story to see them back up at the sort of, well, not the top table yet, but, you know, to be chomping at the bit. And I think maybe if they had qualified for the Champions League, I know Nottingham Forest fans are probably gutted about the way that it finished, but that's probably a bridge too far for them just now in their... Will Nuno stay? Sure.
Sorry?
Will Nuno stay?
I haven't seen any stories about him leaving. Is there stories out there that he might be leaving?
I was thinking the way it fell off, the lunatic manager, the lunatic owner, who looks like he's eaten about 4 managers on the way. I just wonder whether or not, with his exploits, in the Premier League, whether he get a decent or a very good job out in Italy, and he leaves with his head held high. So let's see what will happen. Is it amazing though, Vlahović? Then drop off is normally when you go, say, from Fiorentina playing in Italy to go and play in Germany or to come to play from the Premier League. But to go from Fiorentina and upgrade to play for Juventus with better players around you to get that poor return is kind of baffling. So it begs the question, was the money,
that's what it though, isn't it, mate? It's the money, right? Some people just go, I've made it. I've got my 250 grand. I'm sure he was probably only earning 20 grand a week when he was at Fiorentina. Right. You tenfold your money, you step into a new world of wealth, and then suddenly maybe things are a little bit too easy, So I don't know. Look, who knows? I haven't.
200 grand a week. What's it like?
What's that, mate?
I said you're on 200 grand a week, mate. What's it like?
Yeah, in potatoes.
Potatoes.
Yeah, look, mate. I mean, look, we've been talking about Chelsea a little bit in this kind of update here. They've got the big night tomorrow night against Betis. What do you see happening over there? You got the ex-Man United player on the wing over there that can cause, Chelsea could cause Cucurella a hell of a lot of trouble.
Anthony, talking about
Anthony, I couldn't think of his name for a second. Betis have got some decent players. We're going to see Johnny Cardoso do it against Chelsea tomorrow, hopefully. So that'll be an interesting insight for Tottenham fans. What's your overall thoughts on? There's also a striker that Tottenham will link to, who's on loan at Betis at the moment from Atletico Madrid, I believe. I forget the guy's name. Brazilian guy.
Have a look out while we're looking. Listen, I mean, by all rights, Chelsea should walk this, but. Betis, they won't roll over. This is probably the hardest team that Chelsea have faced in this tournament. A bit like Spurs, really. We only really faced 2. Victor Roca, there you go. Well done, thanks.
Good player, actually. Bit of a bully, that guy. I quite liked him when I saw him.
I think, Cucurella could be quite important for them. Oh, by the way, while we just brought up Chelsea, I thought I'd mention one of the strikers who I thought was going to be a real force when he came there from it was Nkunku, who looks also to be on the run. I'm not
Another
sure.
One. Yeah, Tottenham apparently. I spent 10 minutes talking about him this morning, and after 10 minutes, I was like, why am I talking about this? Tottenham and Chelsea don't do business. Why have I spent 10 minutes talking about Nkunku?
But Nkunku, I really thought he was going to be a player, but he really did struggle pre-season. He was injured, but Chelsea are massive favourites for the game. But you never know. In a one-off game, anything can happen. I do think though that the Chelsea's midfield, with Palmer and their holding midfielders, and I think Cucurella could be a force on the flanks. Jackson's still out, is he? No, I'm not talking about Samuel L. Jackson. I'm talking about Nicholas.
I don't know if Samuel L. Jackson's out. I don't think he's out, is he?
Nicholas Jackson, mate.
Oh, sorry, Nicholas Jackson. Yeah, I haven't seen that, mate. I didn't know if he was. But
I thought you were going to start quoting Ezekiel, right, for a minute when you said Samuel L. Jackson.
Well, somebody get those motherfucking snakes.
Ezekiel number 5.
Speaking of snakes, how you doing, Jacob Wolverine? Anyway, mate, let's pivot to the 2 more stories for you. Bruno Fernandes, £700,000 a week offer to go to Saudi Arabia. What is your take on that? How much can Man United ask? Is he out of contract? He's not out of contract, is he? So how much would Man United have to get for that one to make it work?
I don't think he's got long left on his contract. I mean, a rat on 700 grand a week. It's hard to turn down. There was rumours that the Man United players were begging him to stay. Imagine taking Bruno Fernandes out of Man United right now. I mean, they're bad, but he is the one that holds it all together. However bad they play, he is the shining light most of the week. Obviously,
I remember when
I wanted Spurs to sign him, and we didn't get him because we didn't want to pay the extra 5 million. So we thought we'd go out and loan Gedson Fernandes. Hey, boy, he's got the same name.
Yeah. You want Fernandes? I'll give you Fernandes. The Del Boy version.
Gedson, yeah, honestly, mate. Honestly. Two right feet. Couldn't kick a ball. Absolutely shocking player. There
you go. Saudi would give £100 million for Fernandes, pays for Cunha and one more, which is probably going to be Liam Delap. You know what? This Saudi connection thing, mate. It's as a Tottenham fan who, let's be honest, right? Not to get into the politics of it, but like Jewish club, it makes it a little bit difficult. Then you've got Daniel Levy, who's the FFP PSR poster boy, who's been trying to say forever that these clubs shouldn't be allowed to do what they're doing. Like the only team that's ever going to get strung up and screwed over by other teams getting their back scratched and their belly rubbed by Saudi Arabia is Tottenham Hotspur, isn't it? Like it's.
If we had a relationship with the Saudis, you can see Ben Davies going for 50 million just to help us with FFP, PSR, who runs our book club. Well,
the only player that I think that we have, or two players I think that we have, where you could see Saudi getting on board it from a branding perspective, would be Richarlison. But he's basically said he's not interested in going to Saudi, right?
He ain't going.
100%, right? And then the other one is Sonny. I mean, imagine what Sonny would do in terms of turning the attention to Saudi. Like if Saudi Arabia trying to get more numbers, more eyeballs on their sport, more fans in the stadium. Yeah. Sonny goes and joins them. Like that, you won't be able to get a flight from Korea, from Seoul into Mecca or whatever what's the capital of Saudi Arabia? I forget.
Riyadh.
Riyadh, that's it. Yeah, you like the flights would go through the roof, and like the half the stadium would be full of Korean girls, which would be nice. So like, well, I don't know if the clothing
there won't be a problem. Yeah, they won't be wearing the stuff that they wear for the Tottenham Stadium. But listen, I think
I'll miss them so much, Johnny. I'll miss them so much.
They're good fun. I think for someone like Sonny, Spurs selling for 50 million. They go out, they get some massive payday. Has 2 years out there, and he comes back as the Spurs ambassador.
For perfect way for him to say goodbye, isn't it? At some point, you have to sunset the story with Sonny. At some point, you have to say, whether it's now or in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, at some point he will have kicked his last. Why would you not consider that this is the perfect way? Your last ball you kicked was in the Europa League final. You waited 10 years. You were loyal to the club. You could have gone. You didn't. You stayed true. You got your trophy as the captain. Just a perfect way to say goodbye, right? And then if he went over to Saudi, he can make generational wealth for him and his family, and then doing wonders for Saudi Arabian football. And then Tottenham could obviously get a payday that they're not going to get from other sources, right? So it makes a lot of sense to me.
For me, it has shades of, sort of Muhammad Ali, where go out at the top, but you just want one more fight and one more fight, and then it becomes embarrassing. And
look at Hugo Lloris, mate. If Hugo Lloris left Tottenham 2 years earlier, everyone would remember him so fondly. But as it was, people now just remember him walking off the pitch 5-0 down to Newcastle, never to glove up again. And everyone thinks of him a bit of a donut because he just stayed at the party too long, right? He was, no one wants to be the guy walking around the bar at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's what he was.
Sonny is, for the club, a far bigger icon, with great respect to Lloris. I never saw anyone queuing up or, from France, coming over from France, buying a baguette and a Hugo Lloris T-shirt, whereas everyone's coming over from Asia and buying T-shirts in literally in their thousands. And I just don't want to see a sad Sonny, half the Sonny that we know that he can be. Talking of which, talking about quickly, just diverting. Talking about these parades this week.
Whose parades? What?
Parades, the victory
parade. Yeah.
Spurs was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Incredible parade. And it seems to be everyone trying to outdo it. Liverpool's was incredible. And The one, I don't. Did we talk about it on here? The Napoli one. Am I going?
Napoli one was insane. Yeah, Napoli was insane.
The Napoli one was insane. It looked like everyone lit up a rocket. And then at the end, I'm flicking through, and then I saw the Thai Spurs parade.
Oh, I saw that. That was amazing.
How good was that? They got 100 people on a bus.
That was so good.
That was
so good. Thailand Spurs, take a bow. That was absolutely sensational. If you're watching this, guys, and you are a Tottenham fan, go onto mine. Or I think Johnny also retweeted it. Go onto mine or Johnny's Twitter page, and you'll see about, I don't know, I posted it today. Thailand Spurs put on their own little bus parade. It was absolutely fucking brilliant. Fucking brilliant. Fair play to them.
It's like a parody, but real.
Yeah, it was sensational, mate. Sensational. Mate, last couple of stories for us is, look, we talked about managers, we talked about strikers, we talked about players. We haven't talked about sporting directors. Two stories out today. One is Paratici is imminent and his return to Tottenham. Any story of him going to Milan is now off. That deal, apparently it's done, according to Spurs Web, who's quoting Give Me Sport and Ornstein, I think, as well. So, like, that looks like it's done. But there's also another story. The Newcastle guy, Paul Mitchell, ex-Tottenham, funnily enough, who went to Newcastle. United paid, I think it was something like £6 or £7 million in compensation to get him, then paid him something like £3 million in salary for the best part of 2 months, and then sacked him when Sir Jim Ratcliffe came in, and he went back to Newcastle, and now he's leaving again at the end of the season. So, I mean, and Paul Mitchell is a brilliant director of football. So, I mean, what's going on with that story, mate? Let's start with that one. The Paratici one, I think we've covered, but let's start with Paul Mitchell. What's the story? What's that all about? It's weird, isn't it?
Mate, what a game to be in. Make me sporting director.
Yeah.
I'll get the algorithm to find the players. You can pay me. I won't even take 3 million a year. All right. I'll do it for one. Okay. I'll do it for 1 million. And then you can sack me if you want, because someone else will employ me. And then
just learn how to use Grok or ChatGPT to find the greatest 17-year-old in Istanbul or whatever.
I started having a conversation with ChatGPT the other day.
Oh, sorry, I've screwed up there. It was Dan Ashworth. Sorry, Andy, you're completely right, mate. It wasn't Paul Mitchell, it was Dan Ashworth. Sorry, but Paul Mitchell is leaving as well, though.
But he did leave Newcastle, and he did come back. The other one I thought might be leaving is Campos, who used to be
PSG,
Yeah, he used to be at Monaco, then went to PSG. It was rumours him going. Listen, I think he'll be in demand. But is the director of football? It seems to be, and no one seems to be able to keep their job for very long. I tell you who kept their job for a very long time. Was very, very good at it. It was Dougie Freeman at Crystal Palace. He was absolutely superb. He unearthed so much talent. Ollie, Eze. I mean, you can go through them all. He was the one that got Walton, Mateta. The list is endless of the players he signed. And I was surprised. He was rumoured to be going to Man United, but he got snapped up by a Saudi second division team and paid a lot of money. Gabby could well come back. I mean, Gabby, when Paratici left Spurs, Don Paratici, at the time he was Con Fabio, with the charges at Juventus. Gabbanini thought he would step into the role, but unfortunately Scott Munn, as we know, had other ideas and brought in Johan Lang, which, barring one signing, I don't think has been too good. But is the data analysis making that sort of job how it used to be null and void, Sean? I mean, I'm not saying.
I think it's an art form. Like the talent ID thing might be.
It's 50-50. It's
some degree, but you can't just be like our guy Johan Lang allegedly is very good at pushing numbers around on a screen and asking data and stats and all that stuff. But when it comes to negotiations, he doesn't have the relationships. He hasn't got the personal style, that kind of thing. Whereas Paratici's more of a dude that just knows everybody. You know, Johnny, it's like what you always say to me, mate. You know, like it's all about relationships. You meet someone that's important somewhere. You're going to wet his beak a little bit. You're going to tell him what. We both come from that kind of old school sort of style. Right? You kind of make sure that everyone remembers you and that you.
Great guy last night. Funny enough, a bit talking about your situation and what you've gone through, and he told me it's easy to do what's happened. What? It's easy to do what's happened to you with, the hacking.
Oh, the hacking,
the mirroring.
Yeah. If you fall on the wrong side of someone who knows what they're doing, then you're in a lot of trouble, basically.
Fabio, you don't stay 10 years at Juventus running that show. Yes, it all went Pete's on at the end, but he wasn't taking money for himself. It wasn't for personal gain. He did it, to try and save Juventus during the COVID crisis. But I think his game is very much hands-on, wheeling, dealing, coupled with data.
Do you think Paratici gives a shit about the data, or do you think that he just speaks to people that he knows and goes, anyone coming out of like Torino, anyone, and they go, oh yeah, we've got this 17-year-old kid who's a fucking baller, bro, and he watched a couple of tapes. Like, does he really need to know what's his percentage of tackles recovered? And
I think, listen, he's a guy that knows his football. I mean, I'll never forget seeing the first game, one of the first games Conte came when he brought him in after they got rid of Nuno. And I was thinking, who's that fucking guy on the bench there who's going mental? I thought it was one of the coaches. No, it was Fabio. I've never been director of football screaming at the players to get up.
Oh, and it was so cringy. All the other guys, Daniel Levy's son-in-law doing the same thing. Oh, not sorry, brother-in-law, whatever it was, doing the same thing. They all like, oh, if he's doing it, I better do it. Otherwise, I look silly. So they're all going, shut up, boys. You didn't do it for the last 5 years. You never done it before. Don't start now.
Fabio is very well respected. I even remember the first two signings that he made, bringing in Kulu and Bentancur. And, there were questions asked, like, who are these guys? What are they going to do for us? And they completely transformed our season from that January and got us into the Champions League. And I think on the whole, has he done bad signings? Absolutely. But on the whole, his success rate is such that when you look at the squad now, Papa Sarr, 12 million. Definitely sold, worth more than that. Destiny, 15 million. Vicario, 17 million. Romero, 45 million. Pedro Porro, 40-odd million.
Yeah, they've all appreciated. They've all appreciated for sure.
They've all appreciated, that
maybe Richarlison hasn't. Maybe
Richarlison hasn't, but you could probably write some of that off anyway, amortized over the period. So you need a coach. Whether Paul Mitchell is very, very successful, he has had a successful career, but he seems to be, like Dan Ashworth, seems to be going from club to club. I just don't.
I'm annoyed with myself for forgetting that it was Dan Ashworth went to United. So is Dan? Where's Dan Ashworth now? Is he back? He's back at Newcastle, is he?
I don't know. He's probably got gardening leave again, like more millions. Isn't it a great business? What a business it is! If you can get into football and just have one little bit of success, you can have job after job and get a load of money. It's the only
once you're in the little clique of the managerial merry-go-round, like the Sam Allardyces are always going to get a job. The Alan Kirbishleys will always get a job. Like back in the day, once you're in, you never unless you really screw up, you're in forever, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, look, the worst comes to worst, you end up in Thailand managing the Thai national team.
Or you just go and get a media job at TNT or Sky or whatever, right? It's jobs for the boys, mate. Jobs for the boys. Last question for you, mate. Who is going to be the biggest transfer story of the summer? And second is, who is going to be the biggest transfer ticket of the summer in the Premier League?
I think WIRTZ will be the biggest ticket.
150 million, they say, yeah?
I don't think they'll go for that. I think we'll go for less, but I think he'll be Florian WIRTZ will be the biggest one. I think when you look at what I was talking to you before about the Saudis and the Qataris still looking to invest in clubs, whether or not a club that we don't know about right now will receive some money this summer and therefore see a splurge in transfer activity. Whatever that club may be, Chelsea will do some jiggery-pokery and somehow sell the canteen lady for 15 million.
And loan her back.
And loan her back. But yeah, I expect Chelsea to spend again. Man City, maybe they pulled out WIRTZ because nothing to do with his ability, but more to do with the fact that they can't work the numbers. I mean, they've got Grealish on the books, so they've paid £100 million for. And there's a prime example of a player getting the money, getting the good life, and then going off the rails. I mean, he's had no season whatsoever. Who's going to take a risk? Who's going to take a risk on him this season?
On who, sorry?
On Grealish. Sorry.
Well, look, Jack Grealish is an interesting one. I don't want him at Tottenham, but the links won't go away. I want a player that hasn't put his feet up. The fact that he's not been in Pep Guardiola's good books or good graces basically this season at all, I think it shows you there's a guy there who feels like he's done it, won it, and he's more interested in the beer and going out. So I remember watching him. I remember watching him coming back smashed. He was smashed out of his absolute noggin when they were at the Champions League trophy parade last summer, and he'd been in Ibiza. He just got off a plane and stuff. And I just think, I remember what Harry Redknapp saying, and this is coming from someone that's a functioning alcoholic, basically myself, right? So like I'm 41 years old, and I'm not my health or my fitness does not dictate my ability to earn directly. But I remember Harry Redknapp saying about, I forget who the player was, but he said if he could pass a bar as well as he could pass a ball, he'd be a top draw player. But he was.
There's been loads of them over there.
Loads of them, yeah. And I think that Jack Grealish, unfortunately, is someone that probably, he's too much of a risk. I don't want him at Tottenham. I don't know if do you want him at Tottenham?
I mean, look, you look at someone like Eze, right? He's a God-fearing, humble guy, does work for loads of charities. He's got his own, a foundation. You ain't going to get in trouble with him.
Well done, Martin. Always listening, bro. It was Gio dos Santos, mate. Martin, you're always there, mate. And you're like my own little version of.
Why did you bring up Giovanni dos Santos?
What's that?
What made you bring up Giovanni dos Santos?
Oh, I just said no. I said there was a player that Harry Redknapp had that said, if he could pass a bar as well as he can pass a ball, he'd be a phenomenal player. But he's been drunk too much, right?
Honestly, so, he always needs to bring up for Mexico anyway.
Listen, a couple of stories, just a couple of updates here. In the last half an hour, Manchester United have now met their terms. So whatever it was that was wrong with the previous structure, now Wolves have come back and said, no, sort it out, and they apparently have. So he is going to Manchester United. That deal's been worked on for months.
What a signing.
Great signing. And if they go and get Liam Delap as well, and God forbid they also go and get... I heard rumours today that United won't be able to... They might be able to get Liam Delap and Cunha done, but after that they need to sell like a Fernandes, like a...
They look to do swapsies. Like I said, potentially.
If they rock up next season with a fit front three of Cunha, Delap, and Mbeumo, that's terrifying, isn't it? Even Man United have got a lot of work to do on their squad. For me, I think their biggest weakness is their fucking goalkeeper. I'm surprised they haven't prioritised fixing that.
European football as well, Sean, which will enable them to concentrate on the league. So I think there will be a force next year under Ruben Amorim if they get the right signings in. It'll be interesting to see.
And then stories, Jamie's brought it up. Someone else brought it up earlier. Apparently, Bayern Munich have offered Leroy Sané or Sané, apparently. I've been saying his name wrong for a year. Leroy Sané. Mate, great player, though. Great player. I don't hate that at all. It's just what sort of money, what sort of salary, I think that depends on where we're going to go. But, that's quite a statement signing, isn't it? That's quite that's a bit of gravitas to that Sané. He smashed it at City as well, mate. So he's got Premier League experience. He's done it at he can handle this league. Let's be honest.
He can, but Sean, come on. It's okay, guys, let's have a look. It's Tottenham Hotspur 100 million. Euro. What have they got in the cupboard?
Show me your money. Show me your paper.
They open the cupboard and they try to throw us Matthias Tell, and then they try to sign us, throw us Sane. I mean, listen, throw us everything. I'll tell you who.
Throw us Polinia, please. Throw us Polinia.
Polinia is a different matter. Do you know the other one that we haven't mentioned, Sean?
Go on.
Big faux pas. Another striker that needs to be is Victor Osimhen. What's happening with him?
I don't think he's not coming towards Tottenham.
No, I didn't. No, I'm talking about he's going to go somewhere. I don't think he's going to stay at Galatasaray.
I don't think he'll go to a bigger draw. He certainly won't get into the. I mean, I could see maybe Chelsea going after him. I could maybe see that, but I don't think he'll go. He wouldn't go to Liverpool.
No, he's not going to stay.
Would he maybe go to Newcastle to play alongside Isaac, or behind Isaac, and then because they're going to have the sunset. Callum Wilson's left the club, so yeah, maybe Newcastle put a cheeky bid in for him. He'd be really. He's great, but he's a bit of a tempestuous little shit, isn't he? Like he's a bit kind of. Listen, I know he was a victim of horrendous abuse in Italy, right? So like I understand why he would want to leave Italy, but
I'm not saying he's an incredible player. I'm saying can be a quality striker.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
He's certainly better than Galatasaray, that's for sure.
100%.
And he went there on loan to get away from Italy. And he could be another surprise purchase by one of the clubs that no one's really talking about at the moment, because he doesn't seem to be in any of the conversations as strikers at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. Yeah, he's sort of like the forgotten man of the current round, the transfer spec. Guys, there's been 300 people here. There's 280 people here split across Football Inc. and Sean Butler TV. If you haven't already, I can't see the likes or the subs, but please smash the subs. We're trying to grow both channels. Hit the like button on both. If you can, whichever one you've come in on, get down to the link and bang the other button, bang the other thing and do that as well.
There's a few shows on tonight, Sean. I think that's the reason why, because we had about 800 on the other day. Yeah, I'm sure.
Live. We had 800 live on that channel the other day, did we?
Yeah, we were on 800.
800 views, not live.
No.
We had 800 people live watching on Sean Butler. Oh, you mean that was on Spurs Talk Show? That was on Spurs Talk Show.
Yeah, on Spurs Talk Show and Football Inc.
Yeah, but this is Spurs Talk Show is not.
Just
Johnny, I didn't get your answer. So you said that the £150 million was going to be the number one, or sorry, WIRTZ was going to be the number one ticket.
I think Spurs will be the number one, but I think Arsenal will be the biggest spenders.
Yeah, that was a great question. Yeah, so Arsenal, and how much do you reckon they're going to spend?
It's 250 mil.
250 mil. How much do you think Newcastle will drop?
Interesting one.
I think they'll go 100 plus. They've got to add some depth. They have to add some depth. They've got a wonderful first team, but they need to add some depth. And the way they go about doing that is by bringing in 2 or 3 players. I don't think Newcastle will probably buy like a 60 or 70 million pound player, but I think that you might see them buy 3 or 4 40 million pound players just to add that kind of that quality. Yeah, Jacob Murphy, for example, he's a good player, but he can't. That sort of level candidate can't be a regular starter for a team that wants to win.
Fantastic for them, mate. He's been fantastic this season, Jacob Murphy. I mean, GYOKERES, Joel Linton. I mean, whoever thought, a 35 million pound striker would turn into a top, bruiser midfielder. I think Newcastle really struggled to combine the Champions League and the league, as we saw last season. So 28 likes.
Come on, guys, smash the like button. Whichever one you're on, smash the like. I don't know which channel that's for, but smash the like button.
Please. It helps our algorithm, helps us grow, it helps us do more content. 28 is embarrassing, right?
So Arsenal are going to be the biggest spenders.
If Starmer would get more than 28 votes, right? Hit that like button. Don't be stingy, buggers.
So you're saying Arsenal biggest 250. You're saying Liverpool with WIRTZ still. And who's going to be the surprise package, in your opinion? In terms of which club are you going to wake up on August the 1st and go, you know what? That's actually a fucking good window for them.
Oh, well, I think Man United could be that window. I think they'll do a lot of trades, and I think they'll be working hand over fist to help Ruben Amorim out. So get rid of Sancho, get rid of Rashford, get rid of Garnacho, and that's quite a bit of money coming in. Yeah,
we'll do that. We'll do that as a video, mate. We'll create a spreadsheet. We'll create a spreadsheet and we'll figure it out. Yeah.
Per club. We'll do one per club.
Yeah, 100%. That's a nice little transfer series, isn't it? That'll bang out the content for us, Johnny. We'll start that tomorrow morning, shall we?
Yeah, we'll start that one out. We'll start that one.
All right, guys. Perfect way to round off. I want to say a massive thank you to the 300 people that have joined us across the 2 channels. Johnny, what's coming up in the world of you? And obviously, you can plug your socials, mate.
Oh, I mean, listen, I'm talking Tottenham tonight. I'm talking Tottenham 1882 on TikTok and on Instagram. I'm posting now sort of videos and stuff. It's going to be a bit of a lull, but I think we'll be doing now transfer stuff, bits of stories. I'm going to do like little vlogs on some of the stuff on the Twitter. And I posted tonight Peter Jury's commentary to some of my videos that I shot when we were in Bilbao last week. So if you get a chance, go up and watch that. But I'll be on with you, Sean. Do more link, more Spurs talk show. And hopefully there's lots of stories and lots of stuff. But Football Link, there's a lot of material there for us to go with, and that's our new baby where we'll be talking about all things football. So if you are coming across from another club, please drop us in the comments and tell us what club you're from. We'll endeavour to do more stuff and more stories about them. But look forward to our next show, Sean.
Yeah, 100%, mate. I'll be back tomorrow on Spurs Talk Show. Yep. Depending on what's out in the morning, I'll be out with Bugsy Malone in the morning, or I'll be doing a live stream with Johnny, or both probably at some point. So see us then. If there's anything out in the football financial world, you can find it on Sean Butler TV and on Football Link. And obviously, any of the transfer news around the houses will be on Football Link primarily. Guys, massive thank you for stopping by. Hope you have a wonderful Tuesday night. Come on the Betis, and we will see you on the next.
Keep it real, Betis. Keep it real.
Keep it real, Betis. Cheers, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.